Alrighty there. Hello, folks. We are here back again today. I know we just talked about this morning with everybody, and I don't have really much of anything new for you except a couple little things I'll show you that might be a little fun. But I haven't seen the motion yet, so I don't know exactly. But Mr. Capaldi here wanted to go live and talk about it, so I figured, I can let him haver on for a little while, and that'll fill some content anyway. So look, I like I said, I'm still kind of just laughing about this, and I see a lot of people out there getting worked up about it and everything, and it's like I've told everybody before. The Court of Appeals, when it comes to this stuff, it's my feeling is that they just basically err on the side of caution. So they don't ever want anybody to be able to come with some argument about how they felt rushed by the Court of Appeals or how they weren't able to get themselves prepared and put together in time. In order to avoid any of those arguments, I think they are overly generous in the amount of time they give, and I think that's kind of their policy. So when you think all of this is unfair, just remember, I think it's just part of their policy. So that's my personal opinion and everything. So, Paul, I'm sure you have some haverings to share with us.
I'm sure I do. It was just remember when Zelna was denied the opportunity to extend her word count.
But keep in mind, she'd already extended it like twice previously. So.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I'm just saying, keep that in mind. But yeah.
Well, it's just that she wanted to take it from what was it 35,000 to 41,000.
Right.
One wonders how many words the state wants.
Well, it's just a response, so I don't think they get as many as she gets for the motion, but I could be wrong about that. But and I think her reply to their response is also is like held to an even shorter amount, but I don't know. I could be wrong. Hello, everybody. Hello, Sharon. Hello, Linda. Hello, Rhonda. How's everybody doing? Dark Side of the Moon, how you doing? Nothing but a stump. How you doing? All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. What have the state actually got to reply to? What have they actually got to cover? First of all, what are the Brady violations?
The Brady violations, all right. Those are right here. So your first one is the Brady violation with Mr. Ramlow.
Mm-hmm.
That's the guy who reported seeing a RAV4 and reported it to Andrew Colburn. He saw Andrew Colburn at the, what do they call it? The Quick Trip or something like that. And
at the Senate station.
The Senate station. There you go. And so what Zollner is saying is like, we have nothing of this. There's no mention of this ever happening anywhere. So she's saying that's a potential Brady violation. Brady violation with Mr. Redant. Now, what that's referring to is in talking with Mr. Redant, she found out that they were telling Mr. Redant things when they were questioning him back then, and they were saying things like, it looks like something may have happened over on Cuss Road and basically things of that nature. Which isn't all that shocking to us, folks, because we've all noticed how much activity was going on over there and how little paperwork we have, documenting all of that activity. But so that's what it's referring to, and it's the fact that Josh Redant is reporting that these investigators were saying things to him that never ever appeared in the actual official record, and so that's what that one's regarding. The third one is the Brady violation of the flyover video from November 4, and that has to do with something Kratz said in court, implying that there was more footage to the video than what we have seen on the one that's available. So that's what that Brady violation is in reference to. You got the Brady violation over the zipper voicemail because that thing is just gone. It's not even in the sealed envelope it was supposed to be in. It's just gone, inexplicably gone. Brady violation regarding Miss Heedle, and I believe that is that I believe Miss Hito is the lady that called Teresa that day, and Teresa pulled over to make notes in her um, uh, day planner
Yep.
in real time. And so all that, she's basically saying none of that stuff was ever made part of the official record. And then obviously it gets to the Dassy Yonda CD that good old Detective Fassbender held in his own personal custody for 12 years. So those are your 6 Brady violations.
Wow. And that's even before we get onto the issue of what were they doing giving back animal bones to the holdbacks.
Right. The most damaging ones here are going to be the Yonda Dassy CD, the CD that Tom Fassbender held on for 12 years in his own personal custody. That's going to be a sticky one for them. This where the zipper voicemail is another perplexing one. Like, what the hell? Where is that? If it was in a sealed envelope and it's not there anymore, what's going on there? That's just bizarre. The claims about Mr. Radant, about what they were saying was going on over at Cuss Road, and the fact that none of that stuff ever makes it into the record. It's potentially interesting, but I would say that the CD is the biggest, most hard-hitting one, along with the bones and the due process issue of them violating their own statute. So,
well, I mean, hopefully they're going to address every single issue, because certainly Judge Sukowicz, she took, what was it, about a week to write each page of her decision. When she came up with a 13-page decision eventually, it had taken her a week to come up with each page. As I say, I don't know exactly what the limit is that the state's limit is at the moment. But do you not think it's just a cynical attempt to try and delay it even further?
I don't know that it is. I mean, okay, so that brings us to Jerome Buting's tweet.
Yeah.
Some of you saw One Strand in the Rabs tweet as the thumbnail before the video started. Okay, well, that comes from this. I'll go ahead and make that full screen. And then come on, move.
There you go.
Okay, so obviously here, folks, we got, One Strand in the Rav, her tweet, OMG, can y'all quit stalling already? Which is funny. I love it. But as I say, it's like I say, the Court of Appeals is more likely to err on the side of caution, and they're gonna be more inclined to give everybody the time they feel they need, and that's generally going to be the way they'll decide on these matters. Okay, so what Jerome wants everybody to know is, or what he thinks here, is that this motion to expand the word limit makes it more likely that the state intends to file the brief soon. The brief would already be drafted and edited and still above the word limit to support the motion to expand. However, the clock stops until the Court of Appeals rules on the motion. So, in one sense, maybe you're right, Paul, but generally it's been my experience that the Court of Appeals doesn't generally take more than a couple days to decide on these word count things. So, if they decide to allow the word count to be increased, the motion is still due on whatever it is, the 27th or the 29th. That it was.
Right. Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
And so what Jerry is saying is that they've already drafted it, they've edited it, and
he believes that's what's happened, right? Yeah.
And would they have to prove that to the Court of Appeals and say, look, we've got this in it, it's too long, I
No, they're
suppose that
just
they
no.
don't
I
have.
mean, no. Jerry's just speculating that they have drafted it, edited it, and it's all ready to go, and they're realizing that it's over the word limit. So now they're motioning for an increase in the word limit. That's what Jerome is speculating here, and he's may very well be right. I mean, it's a very plausible series of events, you know, to be honest. So we may have that thing, and which is fine if we get the state's response on the whatever the end of this month, then that means me and Mitch finally get together, because as soon as the response from the state comes out, he's got a couple people that are going to read it, some people whose opinions about it might be very interesting. So I can't wait to talk to Mitch, but I hope the state files soon because I want to be able to talk to Mitch, but maybe not, maybe it'll get extended again. I don't know. This would seem if I go with Jerry's gut here, it would seem that the thing's about ready to be filed, and they're just trying to increase the word limit so that they can file in time. But like I say, it's a guess, even on Jerry's part.
I mean, I was trying to look up the last decision by basically it's by Judge Paul Riley, isn't it? He's the one at the Court of Appeals District 2 who so far has looked at the case, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And as you pointed out earlier, he was pretty scathing of the state when they were trying to go for this procedural bar stuff. And when he remanded it back to Sukovich the last time, it was pretty strongly worded, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, when they remanded the bone issue back to Sukovich, yeah, they kind of basically called the state out on their argument. Number one, they were like, the only arguments you made are that it's procedurally barred. Then you suggested that he could bring the appeal about the bones, but not at the same time as this appeal or whatever, which the Court of Appeals didn't agree with because they believe in bringing everything together. That's the way they prefer to do it. And the fact that the state had suggested that Avery drop his current appeal to pursue the bone issue. And so the Court of Appeals did not find that stuff amusing.
No.
And he did not at all. And particularly the stuff about the procedural bar argument. I mean, that's all they had. And so they specifically sent it back to the circuit court, specifically asking for rulings of fact on the merits of the claim. And so that's what makes this interesting now, because the state now has to argue on merit. That means they have to try to explain why they broke why they, disobeyed or, disregarded their own statute, gave bones back to the family that quite obviously they believe belonged to the victim. And then did they let everybody know what they were doing? No, they hid it. They hid the reports that were created when they were doing it, and they hid the ledgers that were created when they were doing it. The ledgers that document what they were doing and with what. So all these things were hidden, and so they got to argue all. This is what they have to explain this, and they have to try to explain all this dirty dealing that they're doing. And argue it in a way where it doesn't look like they were just monkeying around with this case and just basically screwing with Stephen's constitutional rights.
And with regards to the bones, it was interesting, wasn't it? Because quite a few of us have having read one of Judge Sukovich's opinions. I think it was her last one.
What about the bones, right?
Yeah, it was very much
the one that prompted Rule to write. ADA Sukovich.
Yeah, because it seemed very bizarre, didn't it? That the judge was acting as the district attorney in that, like as if she was Kratz's assistant. And was it not a case of they were trying to say, or Sukovich was trying to say, well, this was kind of like it wasn't really important people who were handing the bones back. Was it not? Were they not laying the blame on somebody, Deputy Hawkins?
Yeah. No, she was just basically saying that they're nobody. They're nobody in terms of this. They weren't anybody important. It's like, no, wait a second. You got Fallon, the assistant attorney general there, Norm Gahn, the guy who helped write the statute that was broken here. I'm like, are you kidding me? These people aren't important. You know, no. I mean, she made it sound like Deputy Dudley was in there giving these things back. And it's like, oh, hell no. This wasn't just Deputy Dudley in there giving these things back. No.
I mean, it just beggars belief. How are the state going to explain that unless basically Sukrich has given them a sort of a head start on that particular issue, you know? Unless they're going to come back and try and claim the same sort of stuff, but it just beggars belief.
I guess. I personally don't think they have a leg to stand on. I mean, you've got. See here, okay. This is gonna get me off. Okay, Tom Fassbender, right? Okay, Tom Fassbender. We're gonna talk a little bit about Tom Fassbender. Okay, what's the one thing that people keep saying to me about the investigation here in small town Wisconsin, small town Manitowoc, and even in the Michael Funk thing, small town Neenah, Appleton.
Yeah,
you know, and oh well, these guys don't know what they're doing, man. They don't normally investigate murders or anything like that, sophisticated like that. Granted, fine. For Calumet County Sheriff's Department, Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, Neenah, PD, granted, that excuse doesn't work for freaking Tom Fassbender, because freaking Tom Fassbender is a seasoned investigator who is at the DOJ, Wisconsin DOJ. So I'm sure he gets called out to the big city quite often. And I'm sure he was involved with one or two nasty murders in his tenure. So that is one bone I have to pick with the fact that some people keep saying, well, it's just these small town guys and they didn't know what they're doing. Some of them maybe. The head honcho, definitely not. And so I wanted to say that. Now, then you have this same guy who, number one, allowed this questionable investigation to happen, even though he's supposed to be a seasoned investigator with the DOJ in Wisconsin. And he ends up taking this critical piece of evidence in the case that the state, number one, knew would sink their star witness. It would make him a third-party suspect. So he would therefore not be able to testify for them, because if they put a third-party suspect on the stand to testify for the state, they know that the defense is going to rip them to shreds. So they're not going to do that. So that's one reason why the CD is getting hid. Number two, it prevents the defense from raising a third party, which then makes the defense all the more plausible. And they just didn't want that information getting out. They didn't want anything that could plausibly point away from Avery, and that CD was ready to do that in all kinds of ways. So is it any wonder it ends up in Tom Fassbender's personal custody for 12 years? And then think about this. Then think about the way it was handed over, folks. I mean, it's like nothing about this CD was handled well. Think about the way it's handed over. Kathleen Zellner announces that she's filing for testing. She's going to be getting some evidence. She eventually gets evidence, sends that evidence off for testing, gets all the results back. She's sharing all of this with the state as it's happening. She then files a motion for post-conviction relief in 97-406, okay? And that then gets considered by Judge Sukrich. And as they're considering that, she eventually makes a decision on that motion and denies it. Okay. The CD could have come out at any point previous. I mean, if they needed maybe something to pop their memory and suggest to them that they needed to turn it over. Maybe when Kathleen Zellner filed, with the court to do some scientific testing, that might have jogged their memory then. Oh, let's give them this CD. But that's not what they did. They waited until it was all the way until it had been denied by Judge Sukowicz. Then Tom Fallon's coming to KZ going, oh, by the way, here's this CD. It's been in Tom Fassbender's personal custody for 12 years. Wait a second. This is exactly the type of thing we would have wanted to make part of our post-conviction motion. And remember, folks, the videos we've done with Travis and Tracy, remember how the courts want everything to come under one umbrella, okay? And think about how many times here the state has tried to go against that. I mean, the state's going to know that better than the rest of us because the state obviously deals with the courts, or these lawyers and stuff deal with the courts all the time. So for them to not understand that the appeals courts prefer all of these things to come under one umbrella, that to me is the telltale sign here. And Tom Fassbender is a dirty dog. He's a dirty dog. And there's just no convincing me otherwise.
Yeah, but as far as the CD was concerned, at one point the state's argument was, well, we did give them everything that they needed, and the CD was merely this index, this thing that Tom Veely had done that sort of indexed everything. But we did hand over the 7 DVDs.
7 DVDs, yes.
Yeah, and the state's argument was that it was basically up to the defense, as in Strang and Buting, to have gone through all that stuff if they'd have wanted to. But that all changed last year, didn't they, with that Wiersky case, whereby it's no longer up to the defense to seek when stuff has been hidden.
Yeah, well, it's not, and you're right. But my other issue with that really is that the state had a forensic analysis done on the Dassey computer. You guys have heard me talk about this, how the state gets to spend as much money as it wants. Okay? Mm-hmm. Most defendants, 99% of defendants, aren't rich and powerful. Okay? And they can't go as big as the state. You know what I mean? And so that's why it's all the more important that when the state is spending money on experts, that whatever information they come up with, in my mind, must be shared. Must be shared. Because the defense is going to have nowhere near the resources they do. Okay? So dumping 7 DVDs with a truckload of information on them onto 2 lawyers who are already overburdened providing a defense for Stephen Avery is not impressing me. Okay? It's not impressing me at all because you're now asking these 2 very busy lawyers to become computer forensic technicians suddenly in the middle of trying to prepare their case legally. Are you flipping kidding me? At what point are we just requiring, or are we asking for a ridiculous amount? Because in my mind, that is a ridiculous amount. Go ahead.
Well, particularly when they, as in the Kratz and everybody, they had the analysis of the computer months and months earlier, didn't they?
They had it. Well, yes, they had that analysis in April.
Yeah.
And then they decided not to hand over that, not to hand over the analysis that they had in April, but they waited about 8 months and at the beginning of December, then dumped 7 DVDs worth of information on the defense. Instead of the one little CD where all you had to do was pop it into a computer and the evidence on it would jump out at you. Literally.
And as well as waiting to the last moment to give Jerry and Dean the DVDs that they were unlikely to
waited
do
8 months
with.
for that even, yeah. I mean, had they done that sooner, it might have helped their case.
Yeah,
where, okay, now Dean and Jerry had 6 or 8 months to review that? Ooh, okay, maybe that might make it a little sketchier. But the fact that they waited as long as they did is what makes it so ridiculous. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say you've also got the stipulation by by Kratz that it's Brendan's CD, and you guys are lucky there's nothing of evidentiary value. But do you not think that during those 8 months that was the ideal opportunity to basically to get into Bobby's ear and say you're going to help us on this?
It's possible.
It was used as leverage against Bobby.
It's possible. I mean, I'm not sure what happened with Bobby, but Bobby is very, very. I don't know what to think of Bobby just because of so many conflicting things. I mean, first she left, then Brian saying he said, you know, I mean, it's like, and then Barb and on that phone call they're saying that Bobby says she never, you know, that she left, or you know, it's just like all this, you know, like. It's like I don't know what to think of him, and yeah, it is odd. His initial conversations with not Remaker, the other guy, Dietering and Jacobs, I think it is, right, and everything. And those conversations, that it's odd. Some of the things that the investigators are saying to him, and there's so much just odd. There's just an odd cloud hanging around the whole subject of Bobby. And
well, I suppose the big question is, you know, how involved do you think Bobby is? And for me, the answer has always been potentially, very, very seriously, and at the very least, guilty of perjury.
Right. I'd say, yeah, that's probably within that range, which is a pretty big range.
It's a pretty big range.
It's a pretty big range, but yeah, I would say it falls within that range. Now, Sattler is asking here.
Yeah.
Let's see here. He said, there is nothing new that is going to come out at this point. The COA has everything they need. The state's response will be a non-factor, as will KZ's response to that. He was saying something about we should go over the options. And the way I see it, the options for the Court of Appeals on this are, number one, they are going to say, we want an evidentiary hearing on the CD, the bones, Redant's statements, and the missing reports. Who knows, right? They can say, we want an evidentiary hearing on that. And we want to have an evidentiary hearing about the bullet, you know, item FL, and do some fact finding, whatever. They're going to determine where they may want to do fact finding on any of the issues raised by Zellner and Avery, and then they will remand that back to the circuit court, possibly to Judge Sukowitz. And Travis has explained this before, and I try to do my best, but it could be to Judge Sukowitz or it could be to another judge. Now, Travis likes to add in this for people, that if they send it back to Judge Sukowitz at this point, it'll kind of be a different situation, because if they send it back to Judge Sukowitz at this point, asking for an evidentiary hearing when all of these matters have just been through her court within the last year and a half, there's going to be a bit of a seriousness, I guess you might say, to the tone of the appeals court at that point. And he says that most of the time at that point, the judges, even though they had been denying it before, will then take a honest, serious look and do an honest hearing. So for those of you who cringed when I said that it might go back to Judge Sukowitz, keep in mind what Travis's words about the fact that these judges, when it comes back in that way, they tend to straighten up and fly right. However, it still could go to a different judge completely. And then it'll be fact-finding. It'll be arguing in court of Zellner, trying to argue why the evidence that she's uncovered speaks the way she says it speaks. The state's going to be in that evidentiary hearing arguing about why they believe that the evidence speaks the way they believe that it speaks. And it's going to be an argument about what is the evidence saying and what does it all mean. And that's what it's all going to come down to.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, one does get the sense that if it was to go back to Judge Sukovich, at some point she's going to let go of this balloon and say, look, guys, I've tried to help you as much as I can. But now this is, you know, I can't keep going out and batting for you, you know?
Well, I don't know why she's been doing this all this time, personally.
Well, Well, I can imagine, because
especially when she got the flowers. I mean, that should have scared the living crap out of her. You know, she's getting. I mean, and then look at who those flowers came from, folks. A family member of Dennis Vogel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that should have given her pause. But you know,
all that the people locally are concerned with is, you know, they're in office. Can they win the next re-election?
Yeah,
that's really all they're concerned about. And in order to do that, all they've got to do is just keep the locals happy, or should I say, a majority of the locals happy, the ones that are important. And it's quite clear that she's been trying to defend. Well, basically, her pal. I've heard it suggested that Kratz and her weren't pals. Well, let's put it this way: they were both on the Crime Victims' Rights Board at the same time.
Yes.
When Kratz was the chairman, she was a member of that board, not as a judge.
Yeah, and that's fine. There's that connection to Kratz, but I think the thing that's more damning for Judge Suk is that her actual involvement in another case with Stephen, where she refused to do what she was supposed to do. A case had been dropped in court by the plaintiffs against Stephen, and she refused to drop it. She kept holding on to it. Steve actually had to go to a higher court to get them to make her do what she was supposed to do. I mean, to me, that shows high prejudice. That shows incredible prejudice for that to happen, and for her to still be on Stephen's cases is, to me, shocking. You know,
if it doesn't go back to Judge Sukovich, though, the actual District Court of Appeals can then look at the case themselves with their 4-judge panel. Is that correct?
Say that one more time.
So if it doesn't get remanded back to Sukovich or a circuit judge,
right,
it basically stays at the appeals stage, Court of Appeals stage, and the Court of Appeals would look at the case.
Right. They could, without any more fact finding, they could determine that they have enough facts to rule on it as it is. They could.
But would they have a hearing on
that? The only other thing you might see here, because I think this is what you're fishing for, the only other thing we might see here in terms of a hearing, besides if they don't send it back to the circuit court, the only other thing we might see is oral arguments. But that doesn't happen very often. Not in the state appeals courts. It happens all the time in the federal appeals courts. It's common in the federal appeals courts. But in the state appeals courts, oral arguments are not common. So there's no guarantee that there will be.
Yeah. Okay. So it could be that that there will be some sort of evidentiary hearing eventually under Sukovich.
Any kind of evidentiary hearing would happen in the circuit court with Sukovich or potentially another judge too. It could be somebody besides Sukovich. Don't know how that might happen yet or what might happen.
Right. So basically, Save Up the Penny is ready for a trip to Wisconsin within the next year.
Within the next year?
Save up for a trip to Wisconsin to attend the court hearings.
Maybe. I'm planning to try to maybe go next time as soon as the Hod's able to get back in from Australia. I'm planning to try to go and hang out in Wisconsin with him the next time he flies in there, but that's probably gonna be another couple months before we're able to get anybody from Australia over here. So
I was going to say it won't be a problem getting into Wisconsin because basically Wisconsin has just dismissed lockdown altogether, haven't they?
Yeah.
All the bars.
I still don't think air travel is allowed. Not international, I mean. Domestically, I believe we're fine. We can fly if we want to, but internationally, I don't believe is allowed right now.
Yeah, certainly I don't think so in and out of Australia at the moment.
Right, or here, I don't think. Anyway,
unless
it's Patriots trying to get back home or something. But anyway,
yes, yep. So it could be a case of getting the boat across then.
No, but seriously, soon as COVID
Yeah.
is starting to lift and the hot is looking to head back over, I'm hoping I'll have a little bit of money together so I can head over to Wisconsin and spend a week there. I've only ever gone for the weekend 2 times. I went for the weekend, literally spent two and a half days, and so this time I want to make sure I go there, and I want to make sure I have like a week, a little over a week, to really be able to go around and check things out, and probably asking for trouble now that I've been messing with Nina, but who knows? I'll have Hopper, and I'll have Hopper looking and setting me in his sights. But
what was his name? Aaron Olson. You've got to watch out for, isn't it?
Right. Oh, Chief Olson.
The chief is. But no, I mean that sounds good. We should let Stacey know, and we should all meet up for a week.
Yeah.
We can check out a few of the bars there, and
we'll have to see if the UK lifts. See if all the international, what's it called, stops lift at the same time.
Yes.
So
yeah. So we're going to have to wait and see. So yeah, there was something else I was going to point out as well that you mentioned about the fact that it was being presented as if well, this is just small town Wisconsin, this is just Calumet and Manitowoc.
Right.
These small towns make basically trying to say they're not used to dealing with these high profile crimes, so maybe one or two mistakes were being made, but. Right. That's not an excuse for keeping two innocent people locked up, is it? Just saying, that they weren't particularly good.
Right. So and if Hoffer comes looking for me, so. So let's see.
Okay.
Given that the state seems capable of the unbelievable, is there consensus that if SA and KZ get evidentiary hearing that there's no possible way they could believe he is guilty? Iced coffee, I would say that there's always a way for the state to believe that anybody's guilty, because for them to believe that everybody's guilty means they save lots of this. So anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly what you said. It really is a case of the locals. You don't want them turning on their own police and their own government. Who have been telling them all this time. We've got the right guys, or right. We got it right the first time. They just. Clearly, we saw that with the Michael Funk case. They hate the idea of ever having to say that they've done something wrong, because then they have to say that they're sorry.
Right.
They didn't even say sorry in 2003 over the 85 case.
Right.
So they're not
right. I mean, to this day, all the agents from Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department that were involved in 1985 to this day still say that it was Stephen Avery that raped Penny Burnson on that beach. That's the type of knuckleheads they are, because it's more comfortable for them in the lie than it is to live with the truth, which is they screwed up and they robbed an innocent man of his freedom and left a guilty man, a very dangerous man, to go on and have more victims and do more damage.
Yes, certainly that's...
you can understand maybe why they might not want to face up to that.
Well, yeah, the most worrisome thing for me is the fact that if Teresa did lose her life, who did it, but more importantly, why?
Yeah.
I don't know
why Stephen would. Doesn't make
There's
sense.
no reason Stephen would. There's no reason Brendan would.
Right. Now, I could see potential reason why Bobby might have, Now, I'm not saying that Bobby did this, folks. I'm just saying I can see there where there would be a potential suggestion of an interest there, but I'm not saying that it was. But so, I mean, but then again, we know that there was a mysterious person that was calling Teresa. Tom Pierce tells us, and he could tell she was visibly upset about this person calling her. I mean, we have her avoiding. We have her avoiding. What's his name? Idiot boy. Ryan Hilligas.
Oh, well, Ryan
Hilligas giving a wedding to Pierce, to her boss, Mr. Pierce, or whatever. Giving one to him because Ryan was going to be in the wedding party, so she didn't want to photograph the wedding. I mean, these are weird things that are going on in Teresa's life, and I know nothing else about those things other than we've heard that these incidents happen, but there's been no real looking into the substance. And that's why this was a poor investigation. That's what you would call victimology, folks. If you watch some of my videos in the past where I talked about Greg McCrary, Zellner's, expert on investigations. Victimology. He goes, the victimology here was piss poor. That's basically what he's saying. He doesn't say piss poor. He's more, he's a little classier than that. He uses more respectful wording of it. But I like the word piss poor because that's exactly what it is.
Micturate? Is that the correct word?
There you go. Micturate poor. There you go.
Micturate poor.
Micturate poor.
But the thing is that could it have been that it was Ryan that was doing the harassing phone calls?
Sorry, I'm just looking at Claire. Yeah, I saw Dave. Dave always has interesting things to say. So yeah, I wanted to just give her that nod. Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
Again, Dave was going over the fact that he, when he was on the beach, there was quite a few detectives there at the time.
Yeah, his reports of what happened on that beach have always been interesting to me. In fact, folks, I got some footage when I was there one year. Mark and I went and found those beaches and where those berms are. And I actually got some footage in front of the berms where the water is. And then behind the berms, I went and did like a footage of the landscape behind the berms so that people could get an idea. So it's interesting. But yeah, I've always found what Dave had to say there interesting, particularly on that beach when Penny was getting raped. His accounts have always been bizarre. Not bizarre in the sense it's always weird to me that he saw so many people when he went over the berm that he says he saw so many people. I can't understand why or how there could be a lot of people there, but I don't know. And the other thing with the lady who helped him run his bar, again, very odd, very, very strange.
No, my question was that, could it be that it was Ryan that was doing the harassing phone calls?
It's possible. It could have been Ryan.
But then, does that make him a killer? Just because
maybe not. But what it shows is that he has an unhealthy interest. That he is continuing to call her and harass her, even though she doesn't want him to. That's more of the concerning thing about it. That's why I say it needed to be investigated. I'm not sitting here saying this means Ryan's guilty. I'm saying this means Ryan needed to be investigated, but wasn't. Right? So.
And we know that Bobby has an unhealthy interest.
Judging by the things he was looking at on the computer. Right.
But how incredibly fortunate was it that either if it was either Ryan or Bobby that they took care of Teresa in their own way just before Kosurek and Vogel have to give depositions.
Right.
Is that just coincidence?
It could be. I don't know exactly what to say to you. It could be that this is something that happened on Cuss Road at the right time, and they thought, you know what, guys, this is close enough to Avery. Maybe we can smoke and mirror this a little bit. or maybe the original cops that got called out. I don't know, but the whole thing is that there's so much activity on Cuss Road, very little documentation, and then we have what clearly looks like planted evidence on the Avery salvage yard. So it leads you to wonder, I just, it's possible to me that the actual murder site was over on Cuss Road or even somewhere else, and Cuss Road just got used as a staging area. I don't know, but it seems pretty clear something was going on there with all the dog activity going through the quarry and Cuss Road and the salvage yard and back and forth and all those things. There's definitely something odd going on there at Cuss Road.
But when you look at for want of a better word, the bigger picture of the fact that you've got the depositions are about to reach their grand finale. Teresa disappears. And you've got the way in which this, since Zellner has taken over, the way that, for example, Sukerich has been so, what's the word I'm looking for? So awkward, so obstinate.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what it really is that they're trying to hide. Because for me, if it was Bobby, why not just say, oh well, we got the wrong guy. Okay, then let's get Stephen Brendan out and let's pop Bobby in prison.
Right.
But for me, I'm afraid I wonder about whether
times that you say that, because trust me, dude, you keep saying that phrase over and over again, I'm going to end up getting a message from somebody, and then I'm going to be mad at you. So, all right. Anyway, sorry.
yeah. Because me. We both get messages from time to time. But no,
like I say, for me, Bobby is a shadowy figure. There are questions that we all have, and I'm going to leave it at that. And so that's my official stance on it.
But I just wonder if the reason why the state are clinging on so much is because the true horror of this is the fact that their own sheriff's department were happy, or at least agreed with the idea of sacrificing an innocent photographer in order to get their sheriff,
or took advantage of something that had already been done. But like I say, yeah.
I struggle with this coincidence thing, that it was just a very fortunate coincidence for...
On the other hand, Teresa was getting ready to dress up as a sexy cowgirl and go out for Halloween. You know what happens? Well, I don't know. Do you happen to know what the young folk get up to at the Halloween parties there in the UK? What, the youngsters, what tends to go down at Halloween parties, and what kind of the entertainment is consisting of and that sort of thing?
Certainly where I was, we didn't tend to have much in the way of Halloween parties. It wasn't considered that big a thing.
Well,
for us,
here in America,
for us,
they are huge.
The 5th, hold on a sec.
Go ahead.
For us, the 5th of November, which is Guy Fawkes Night, is when you have bonfires everywhere.
There you go. So here in America, Halloween has become the holiday now, where that you let it all hang out that night. All the girls are wearing the most sexiest, skimpiest things. Generally in the younger crowd. This is now when you're in 20s, early 30s, haven't gotten married yet, maybe in the first couple of years of marriage, and you're still going to parties. But anyways, these parties are off the hook, dude. Off the hook. So I can imagine that if she was buying a sexy cowgirl outfit and was getting ready to go to a Halloween party, that if there was some gentleman, and I would maybe use that term loosely, that was in her life that was maybe jealous and didn't like her looking at other guys and didn't like the idea of her going to a Halloween party. I mean, this could be the type of thing that set off that jealous individual in her life. So I'm saying that is a real possibility.
It is. It seems, though, a very strange coincidence. If Stephen Avery was the last call, and we hear that her phone stops working after, what was it, 2:47.
Right.
That suggests to me that she was definitely attacked at that time.
Being right.
Yeah, it's
Somewhat
somewhat similar.
conspicuous that Bobby was leaving at the same time, but yeah.
But for me, two reasons why she might pull over. One, because she's being flagged down for hustle shot. Another one, if a policeman suddenly says stop.
Yeah.
If a sheriff's officer was there.
Right.
I must admit, I've always, right from the word go, had a hunch that it's we hear Kenneth Peterson talking about the fact that it would be easier to eliminate Steve than it would be to frame him.
Right. Yes.
Which has always given me cause to think that these sort of discussions, these sort of
discussion to be having, yes.
Discussions take place behind closed doors in the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. You've got Dave and his barmaid, who also a member of staff that died of a heart attack, and yet there was blood everywhere.
Right. Yeah. And I've heard other stories that come back to Wisconsin. I mean, there's this other one about a guy who was in California, and some stuff went down in California. Dave sent me the link to it one time. And it went down, and then the guy ended up back in Wisconsin and was getting followed by an all-black vehicle. Two guys in black suits got out of it when he stopped. Two guys in black suits got out of it, started firing at him. He had bullet holes all up the driver's side of his truck. He managed to hit one of the guys, and by hitting one of the guys, they jumped back into their vehicle and left. So he survived. And when he tried to complain about it, people were telling him he was crazy, even though he had bullet holes all down the driver's side of his freaking car, his truck. It's like, that's Wisconsin for you.
As I say, I think for me, the reason why the state are so desperate to cling on to this conviction of Stephen Brendan is because the truth could potentially, okay, it's a possibility, if you'll bear with me, it's a possibility, as I say, that the Sheriff's Department decided that somebody had to be sacrificed. Maybe. They were staking out the Avery. Well, why is Andy Colburn, the wonderful Andy Colburn, getting on so pally-wally with Earl Avery that Earl actually considers him to be a bit of a friend because he's so often at the yard? Why is he going and checking out the Avery salvage yard when his pal, Robert Herman, has got a salvage yard that's just 10 miles down the road?
Right, Cleveland, yeah. It is suspicious. And you can tell when you see the way that I believe it's Earl. No, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, is it Earl? Yeah.
Earl.
Yeah, it's Earl. Earl was like rather hurt because Andy was really a false friend and disappeared immediately. And so, was Andy there really trying to collect information, do reconnaissance in a sense? Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of disturbing things about this. That's why people stay interested and are continuing to follow it.
I mean, here's the thing, isn't it? That was it a case of maybe it was a sheriff's deputy that actually eliminated Teresa, or was it done on their orders?
Well, I don't know.
Either
way, obviously that's, if it was done that way, I don't know. Either way.
When you're looking at motives, yes, I do buy it. The jilted lover, very much so. Very, very, very powerful cause. Yeah. But the timing is just so coincidental. It is so unbelievably fortunate
which is why I introduced the Halloween party scenario, so you can see that maybe it wasn't so much of a coincidence. But I agree with you. I mean, it did happen in a timely manner for the depositions, and you're right. You're absolutely right about that.
You know, and yes, it's obviously a case that Kathleen Zellner has to highlight that, you know, the computer makes Bobby look, well, to put it bluntly, it makes him look like a pervert. Looking at the stuff.
Yeah, that's what that content on the computer, maybe even a little bit more than a pervert. Maybe maybe a tiny bit more than a pervert even.
So yeah, some sort of issues that would cause him to possibly, overstep the mark.
I mean, there's some pretty macabre stuff.
Yeah, and you've got obviously Scott with his incredibly bad temper.
Yeah, not sure that Scott ties into it, or how much, but like I said, there's a lot of questions around Bobby. That's the way I leave it, is that there's a lot. Yeah. He's a very shady character because there's so much question around him. The conflicting statements he's given compared to the conflicting statements that have been attributed to him and everything. And it's just, it's really bizarre. And the proof, the stuff that's on that computer is shocking. And then there was the time they tried to claim it wasn't in his room, and then you can see it right on the evidence video. Boom, there it is. It was right in his room. So it's like when you start seeing stuff like that, that's where Bobby has become a very shady character. And I know Barb hates that. I know she's probably pissed off at me if she finds out I was talking about this a whole bunch. But the fact of the matter is that that's the truth of it. Bobby is a shady character. And we have issues with what we know. And we know that he was the state's star witness, but it doesn't make sense. There was already things that tip people off just from watching Making the Murder. The fact that him and Scott alibi each other by a clock on Scott's dashboard of his truck and all that, and just all the things that originally. Then we ended up coming to find out all the things we found out later. I mean, yeah, there's some stuff there that's got to make you wonder. And obviously Bobby's been very tight-lipped. He hasn't wanted to say a whole lot. Not saying he should or shouldn't, just saying that that's what it is. But
yeah. Like I said, if it was just a simple case of, we simply got the wrong guys, hold on a sec, the evidence points more towards Ryan or it does point towards Bobby, it doesn't explain why they're putting up such a fight.
Well, they're interested in putting the genie back in the bottle. I mean, that's what they wanted. I mean, whether they orchestrated this to happen, whether the law enforcement or whatever, the state, whatever, however you want to look at it, the handful of cops that were worried about their culpability in Avery's lawsuit maybe got together and put this together. It was because of they wanted to put the genie back in the bottle. That is, revilify Stephen Avery. And by revilifying Stephen Avery, they can effectively turn the clock back in a sense. So that's why they obviously then needed something to happen. So if they went and made it happen themselves, as Paul is saying, right, and got somebody or did it themselves and killed Teresa, or whether it was somebody else that was jealous and it just happened at that time because it was Halloween time and Teresa was going to be going to a party and maybe that she was killed by somebody else and law enforcement took advantage. Either one of those scenarios where they did it or where they took advantage, they are still doing a lot of dirty things. Even if they're just taking advantage, they're doing a lot of dirty, underhanded things so that they can pin it all on Avery to put that genie back in the bottle.
Yeah, but and as obviously Sappercott points out, and we've covered this plenty of times, the Ricky Hochstetler case shows just how warped and twisted and any sense of trying to find the truth can be in Manitowoc.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's
Yeah, the Hochstetler case is another one. I mean, you had James Link lying to the victim's mom, saying that he had called DCI when he never had. I mean, and it turns out DCI did have some pretty sophisticated equipment for doing reconstruction on hit and runs like the one Ricky was involved in. I mean, and when you find out all this stuff, and it's just like, oh, Jesus, these guys, man. I mean, they're just the worst. The worst.
You've got Robert Herman being investigated twice by the FBI.
Well, DCI, and maybe
Was
once
it
by
DCI?
FBI. Yeah, DCI twice investigated him. I'm not sure about the FBI, but DCI definitely
Okay.
twice.
Maybe I've got the wrong first two letters. No, I mean the thing is that obviously, from Bobby's point of view, if he didn't do it, the problem is for him from his point of view is that he was excluded as being somebody that Dean and Jerry could point to and say, well, you're saying that Steve was the last person to see Teresa alive. Steve is saying the last person to see Teresa alive was Bobby as he followed her out of the salvage yard. It's a case of Bobby, has got to be pursued in Zellner's briefs, in her motions, to just to establish that fact that he should have been looked at very, very closely,
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not he did it, he might have done. He might have done, right. and did you say it might have been Ryan, and it might have been, she was going out on that night, and somebody was very jealous of her. What puzzles me is the fact that the phone stopped working at 2:47. That's the last time there was any activity on that phone. So what are we saying that she made it home? She changed into a cowgirl outfit, and then was attacked at some point, or that she made it home and was attacked by Ryan when she got back home?
I'm not going that far with it. I'm just saying it was known she had a cowgirl outfit and was getting ready to go that night. So I'm not sure if she made it home or not. But yeah, I'm not sure as to all that. I'm just saying she had the cowgirl outfit and it was well known enough that we all know about it now. Right. And so if we all know about it now, somebody back then that was obviously too up in Teresa's business, as I'm suggesting, might have known about it and was, gonna nip it, was gonna do something about it before. That's basically that's the theory I'm throwing out there, and I'm not even saying it's necessarily the one. I'm just saying there's possibilities here of what could have happened, and I'm not gonna pin myself down necessarily. Now, there's one I favor, I would say, and I gotta go here, so I'm gonna have to shut this off here. I'm gonna have to wind this down here. But ultimately, it's possible. It's possible that the handful of officers involved in this who were liable for the 85 thing got together and orchestrated for the evidence to be found the way it was, and they might possibly have killed Teresa themselves, or they may have just been taking advantage of the fact that someone else did at that time, which ended up helping them to prevent Vogel and Peterson from having to, and Kosarik from having to, from having to be deposed. So, I mean, the whole timing on everything is real fishy. The conduct of the state is way too fishy. And that's all the problems. I mean, that's so much of the problem with this case with Avery is how fishy everything is and how how not right it all is. And how, I mean, like I say, when I see so many officers violating, SOP and standard operating procedure, that's there to protect them, folks. Like, you have to understand, it's to break with standard operating procedure. You got to have a damn good reason to want to break from that, because it protects you as an officer. By doing things according to standard operating procedure, you can essentially do no wrong. It's when you don't follow standard operating procedure that you open yourself up for, criticism, possibly liability, a number of things. So when you see so many officers breaking SOP, when SOP is there to protect investigators, officers, agents of the state, that's weird. That's weird. Straight up weird. So, anything before we go, Paul?
No, I don't think. If Jerry's right and they do end up having to file on the deadline of the 29th, we've not got very long to wait to have as you say, a good laugh at how they are going to try and extricate themselves from this mess. No, you crack on, dude. You've got stuff to attend to, so you go and and attend to that. And it's nearly 11:15 at night here, so I'm going to go and read a bit more of my book and maybe have one last beer before going to bed.
There you go, buddy.
Yeah, living the life, living the dream.
Yep, there you go. All righty, everybody. So hope you guys had fun. Obviously, we started talking about the states, asking for a higher word count. Got off onto some tangents there. Had some fun with it. So hope you all enjoyed it. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.
See you later. Cheers, dude.
See you, buddy.
See